and his composition Dastan was heard in the legendary Iranian filmmaker Mohsen Makhmalbaf's film The President, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival 2014. He composed music for the documentary Writing with Fire 2021, which was nominated for the Best Documentary at the 94th Academy Awards. Pushan Ayyub does not really require an introduction in TIFR. But for the benefit of outsiders, Pushan was a professor of Honors Matter Physics at TIFR, from where he retired in 2019. He did pioneering and very important work in nanoscience way before it became a buzzword. We have all been enthralled by his talks on the subject. Today, however, he will talk about Bangladesh and the Liberation War and its connection to his parents. Pushan's father, Abu Sayyid Ayyub, was a renowned writer and philosopher, and is particularly known for his interpretation of Tagore's work. His mother, Gauri Ayyub, was a teacher, writer, and social worker. For their contribution to the Liberation War, both of them were separately awarded the Friends of Liberation War honor by the Bangladesh government. Now, let me tell you briefly the plan of the concert today. This concert will be in several segments. The first part will be about what Moushumi calls the little things that make our little homes. Moushumi will begin as if gently humming to herself, as if telling bedtime stories to her child. Tajdar, an old friend, knows every nook and corner of her home and knows where to place himself within her songs of memory and desire. But slowly, she will start to move out into a wider space. It is the dawn of 21 February, the Language Martyrs' Day on the 21st of February. And the sun is slowly rising on her Chitrakor's canvas. The stage will now be set for the second segment for Pushan Ayyub, who will delve into his personal archives to interweave oral history with visual memories and poetry. From 21 to 71 and beyond, he will take us with him on a journey to briefly chronicle the birth of a new homeland. In the last segment, picking up from where Pushan will leave off, Moushumi and Tajdar will sing about the birth, death, and rebirth of the dream of this larger home and the homeland, and about the place of the little home within that larger home. Okay, maybe everybody can hear me. I forgot to say that please switch off your mobile phones or put them on silent mode.
Where does one begin to thank everybody for what we have received over this last week? And whom do I start to thank? So we'll keep the thank yous for later. So this song, it's called Pakhir Danai Ude, riding on the wings of the bird. This is a song that I sing as a kind of a prelude, a way by which we can meet each other and start listening to one another. This is my way of trying to listen to you and asking you, inviting you into my world of listening and seeing. Allah, 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 Allah. I ride on the bird and go to your sky, the river of your village, the roads of your town, the colors of your flags, the light of your sun, the face of your love, I see to my fill. What is your name, woman? What tongue do you speak and sing and live? Whom have you left and where do you go? I ride on the bird and go to your sky, listen to your voice, your river as it flows, the sound of your poems, the songs of your rain, the dotara you pluck. I listen to my fill. What is your name, woman? I hear in your voice echoes of my pain. Whom have I left and where must I go? Ashad Maisha Bhasha Panire. The month of Ashad is flooded with rain. Winds blow in from the east. I watch the sailboats as it comes. Do they come for me? Ashad Maisha Bhasha Panire. আমি পাখির ডানায় উড়ে তোমার আকাশে যাই, তোমার গ্রামের নদী, তোমার শহর গলি, তোমার মিছিল রং, তোমার রোদের আলো, তোমার প্রেমের মুখ দেখি আমি চোখ ভরে। কি নাম তোমার মেয়ে? কি ভাষায় কথা বলো, গান গাও, পথ চলো, কাকে ফেলে এসে তুমি কোথায় চলেছো বলো। আল্লাহ, আমি পাখির ডানায় উড়ে তোমার আকাশে যাই, তোমার কথা বলা, তোমার নদীর চলা, তোমার কবিতা ভাষা, তোমার বৃষ্টি গান, তোমার দোতার ধ্বনি শুনি আমি প্রাণ ভরে। কি নাম তোমার মেয়ে? তোমার কণ্ঠে বাজে আমার বিষাদ সুর, কাকে ফেলে ডানায় উড়ে তোমার আকাশে যাই, তোমার কথা বলা, তোমার নদীর চলা, তোমার কবিতা ভাষা, তোমার বৃষ্টি গান, তোমার দোতার ধ্বনি শুনি আমি প্রাণ ভরে, কি নাম তোমার মেয়ে, তোমার কণ্ঠে বাজে আমার দিশার সুর, কাকে ফেলে সে আমি যাব বলো কত দূর। আশার মাইশা ভাষা পানিরে, পুবালি বাতাসে বাদাম দেখা চায়া থাকি, আমার নিকেও আসে রে আশার মাইশা ভাষা পানিরে। আল্লাহ আল্লাহ The next song is called Shuri Kare Bhitare. And my friend Ruchir Joshi had translated the song, and so I'll just read the translation. There is this thing inside me, goes by the name of life. It's difficult actually to translate the word Poran. So life sort of captures it and doesn't. There is this thing inside me, goes by the name of life. It's what calls me out, it's what takes me home. This thing that wants to catch a cloud right now, dives into sunlight just then, that suddenly starts laughing at something it's just told itself. I had a house right next to the rail tracks. That sound, the sound of that last train fluting by still makes this thing inside me cry. There it goes, this thing inside me, doesn't know who it's looking for, where it's moving to, just trances away, pulled by that sweet night flute. শরীরটারি ভিতরে পরাণ নামের কি যেন কে থাকে, তারি ডাকে আমি ঘর বাহির করি। শরীরটারি ভিতরে পরাণ নামের কি যেন কে থাকে, তারি ডাকে আমি হাসে শরীরটারে ভিতরে পরাণ নামে কি যেন কে থাকে তারি ডাকে আমি ঘর বাহির করি। আমার বাড়ি ছিল রেল লাইনের ধারে, আমার বাড়ি ছিল রেল লাইনের ধারে। রাতের বেলায় শেষ গাড়ির মোহন বাঁশি শুনে আমার প্রাণ কেঁদে মরে। আমার বাড়ি ছিল রেল লাইনের ধারে। রাতের বেলায় শেষ গাড়ি মোহন বাঁশি শুনে আমার প্রাণ কেঁদে মরে। এখনই সে ছুটে যেতে চায়, কার কাছে তা নিজেই সে কি জানে। এখন কেবল নিশি ডাকে মিঠে বাঁশির টানে শরীরটারি ভিতরে পরাণ নামে কি যেন কে থাকে তারি ডাকে আমি ঘর বাহির করি। আমি কাজ করতে বাহির দেশে যাই, আমি কাজ করতে বাহির দেশে যাই। দুপুর বেলায় ঘরের কোণে নিবিড় ছায়া ডাকে বলো কি করি উপায়। আমি কাজ করতে বাহির দেশে যাই। দুপুর বেলায় ঘরের কোণে নিবিড় ছায়া ডাকে বলো কি করি উপায়। কাজ ফেলে মন করে ফিরতে চাই, ইচ্ছে করে মাদুর পেতে শুতে, ইচ্ছে করে আঙুল দিয়ে তোর কপাল ছুঁতে শরীরটারি ভিতরে পরাণ নামে কি যেন কে থাকে তারি ডাকে আমি ঘর বাহির করি। শরীরটারি ভিতরে So this is a song, it says, the hills of my childhood call me. Yeah, and I smell my mother in the air. ছেলেবেলায় পাহাড় আমায় ডাকে, হাওয়ায় হাওয়ায় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে। ছেলেবেলায় পাহাড় আমায় ডাকে, হাওয়ায় হাওয়ায় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে। বিকেল বেলায় লুকোচুরি পাশের ঝাড়ে থাকে, মায়ের গন্ধ ঠান্ডা হাওয়ায় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে। ছেলেবেলায় পাহাড় আমায় ডাকে, হাওয়ায় হাওয়ায় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে। শীতের দুপুর রোদ মাখানো ছোট্ট দুপুর বেলা, খেলায় ছুটির দিন কাটানো সকাল দুপুর খেলা। ছেলেবেলার রোদ মাখানো শীতের দুপুর ডাকে, লেবুর গন্ধ হাওয়ায় কমলা লেবুর গন্ধ থাকে। So you smell oranges in the air. You know, when we were small, those oranges used to have another kind of taste. I don't get that taste anymore. And the oranges of the hills, they were something else. And we learned that we peel the orange, and then when I went to England, you realize that orange is one thing, satsuma is something else, clementine is something else, and it's sometimes something, too many words, you know, too many choices, and something loses its meaning. So that orange of my childhood, we would peel the orange and then say we would count the number of, you know, pieces within. And then we divide and share and eat. You know, that orange that we shared and ate, and the peel that we squeezed a little bit into somebody else's eyes, and you know, and it burned, and you smelled, and it was so bitter, that peel. And when we went down from Shillong to Guwahati, the road used to be winding down, and we felt giddy. So both me and my sister, we would sort of tuck our heads into our mother's lap, and we smell oranges, because we knew that oranges actually you didn't feel giddy if you smelled oranges. So anybody from the hills would know all these things, you know. It's difficult to explain to people who've not smelt it in their childhood. শীতের দুপুর রোদ মাখানো ছোট দুপুর বেলা খেলায় ছুটির দিন কাটানো সকাল দুপুর খেলা ছেলেবেলায় রোদ মাখানো শীতের দুপুর ডাকে লেবুর গন্ধ হাওয়ায় কমলা লেবুর গন্ধ থাকে ছেলেবেলায় পাহাড় আমায় ডাকে হাওয়ায় হাওয়ায় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে সন্ধে হবার খানিক আগে আমার দু চোখ বুজে ছেলেবেলার পাহাড়টাকে নিচ্ছি আমি খুঁজে হঠাৎ দেখি ধুলো চাদর আমার পাহাড় ঢাকে ছেলেবেলা পথ হারালো কলকাতারই বাঁকে তবু আবার ছেলেবেলা ডাকে ধোঁয়ায় ধুলোয় মায়ের গন্ধ থাকে তবু আবার ছেলেবেলা ডাকে ধোঁয়ায় ধুলোয় লেবুর গন্ধ থাকে তবু আবার ছেলেবেলা ডাকে So this is a story that I used to tell my child. So we went to Murshidabad once, and Murshidabad is this old Nawabi place. So there are still those dongas, Ekka Gadi, we call in Bangla. So there was this, he was small, my son was small, and there was an equally small boy, maybe a little older than him, who was driving this cart. I can't remember now whether there was another older person also driving the cart, but all I remember now is that there was a little boy. And then he looked, this boy might have been a bit older than my son, but still he looked so much like my son. And then when I came home and when I was singing to my son and telling him stories, and on his face I could see the face of that little boy, while on the face of that little boy I could see the face of my son. And he was driving this Ekka Gadi, but the horse, the stories in my son's, the horses in my son's stories, they had wings and they could fly. But this Ekka Gadi, the horse, was, it didn't have wings. So, গল্প শুনে গল্প শুনে গল্প শুনে টগবগ 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 গল্পে ছোট্ট ঘোড়া টগবগ টগবগ গল্পে ঘোড়াটার আকাশে ওড়া আবার বলো মা আবার বলো মা আবার বলো আবার বলো মা আবার বলো মা আবার বলো No, we are not on the right thing. ছোট ছেলেটার ছিল একটা গাড়ি আর ছিল রোগা ঘোড়া দুষ্ট ভারী এগুলো ক্ষেপ্ত পথে কষ্ট চলা আজকে আমার ছেলে তাতেই সওয়ার আজ ছুটি আজ ছুটি আজ ছুটি আজকে দিন বেড়াবার ছোট ছেলেটার ছিল একটা গাড়ি আর ছিল রোগা ঘোড়া দুষ্ট ভারী এগুলো ক্ষেপ্ত পথে কষ্ট চলা আজকে আমার ছেলে তাতেই সওয়ার আজ ছুটি আজ ছুটি আজ ছুটি আজকে দিন বেড়াবার ছেলেটার দিকে আমি তাকিয়ে থাকি চেনা চেনা মুখটাকে খুঁটিয়ে দেখি কার মতো যেন তুই কার মতো যেন তুই কার মতো যেন তুই মনে পড়ে না ছেলেটার দিকে আমি তাকিয়ে থাকি চেনা চেনা মুখটাকে খুঁটিয়ে দেখি কার মতো যেন তুই কার মতো যেন তুই কার মতো যেন তুই মনে পড়ে না টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না সত্যি ঘোড়া টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না রোগা ঘোড়া জানে না আকাশে ওড়া পা টেনে চলে সে গাড়ি টেনে চলে সে বোঝা টেনে চলে পা টেনে চলে সে গাড়ি টেনে চলে সে বোঝা টেনে চলে আবার ঘুমিয়ে আছে আমার ছেলে পক্ষীরা দুই ডানা স্বপ্নে মেলে উড়ে চলে আমি শুধু চেয়ে থাকি আমার ছেলের মুখে কি যেন দেখি কার ছায়া কার ছায়া কার ছায়া তোর মুখে মনে পড়ে না কার ছায়া কার ছায়া কার ছায়া তোর মুখে মনে পড়ে না কার ছায়া কার ছায়া কার ছায়া তোর মুখে মনে পড়ে না টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না সত্যি ঘোড়া টগবগ করে না টগবগ করে না রোগা ঘোড়া জানে না আকাশে ওড়া পা টেনে চলে সে গাড়ি টেনে চলে সে বোঝা টেনে চলে পা টেনে চলে সে গাড়ি টেনে চলে সে বোঝা টেনে চলে টগবগ 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 গল্পের ছোট্ট ঘোড়া টগবগ টগবগ গল্পের ঘোড়াটার আকাশে ওড়া So, in this song, this is a song that's called Daya Koro, have mercy, so, or have compassion. Daya can be many things. So, দয়া করো এই খরায় আমার সমস্ত দেহ পুড়ে পুড়ে ছাই, দয়া করো। So this city, this home, these streets, they burn me, so have compassion, have mercy. And this time that binds me, have mercy, free me up. These walls of this house, they bind me, have mercy. And I'm so tired of living and loving and all these games that we play. Have mercy, have compassion. I just want to stand outside of it all, just once, just that one time. Is that stopped? দয়া করো এই খরায় আমার সমস্ত দেহ পুড়ে পুড়ে ছাই, দয়া করো এই শহর শরীর সময় সকলে পুড়ে পুড়ে ছাই, দয়া করো ওগো বৃষ্টি। So rain, come and fall on this parched body. ওগো বৃষ্টি, ওগো বৃষ্টি, তুমি তৃষিত শরীরে শহরের বুকে ঝরে ঝরে পড়ো, দয়া করো ওগো বৃষ্টি। দয়া করো এই ঘরের ভিতরে অন্ধ বন্ধ দেহ মন, তাই দয়া করো এই স্তব্ধ গুমট রুদ্ধ কপাট ঘরের ভিতরে খেলে না বাতাস, দয়া করো এই পাঁচিল দেয়াল দেয়ালে টাঙানো পিকাসোর পটে নোনা ধরে আছে, দয়া করো ওগো ঝড় এসো, ওগো ঝড় এসো আর আঘাতে আঘাতে ভেঙে দাও সব, দয়া করো। So come storm, come and break these walls on which hangs this moldy portrait of Picasso. দয়া করো আমি ভালো 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 ভালোবাসাবাসি খেলাতে ক্লান্ত, দয়া করো এই ভালো থাকা বাসা ভালো করা, ভালো ভালো তো লাগে না, দয়া করো আমি একবার শুধু একবার আমি বাইরে দাঁড়াবো একবার, তাই দয়া করো আমি ভালো 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 ভালোবাসাবাসি খেলাতে ক্লান্ত, দয়া করো এই ভালো থাকা বাসা ভালো করা, ভালো ভালো তো লাগে না, দয়া করো আমি একবার শুধু একবার আমি বাইরে দাঁড়াবো একবার শুধু একবার আমি একবার আমি We had a workshop yesterday. Dibu and Shomujit and Sriram, Jagdeep, Ayush, Prajjalok, if you could all come, please. Please come. So we had a workshop yesterday. We could have a little bit more light now. So this was, it just made sense for us. I mean, what's the point of having a workshop if we don't make something, you know? So we have to try and make something together. That was the whole idea. So we tried to make a song together. This is a song that I started to write a long time ago. And actually it's taken many years to write this song. I wrote the first verse of this song and then I just kept it. I just kept it like that. In fact, it's only yesterday that Taj also heard it for the first time. So I sang it at the workshop. We were demonstrating how So, will this keep happening? So we were trying to demonstrate how with fresh material we start working between the two of us, how we start composing, how we start arranging things, how we start writing. With something very new. And then they had all brought, come on, come in. So they had brought their, come. So they had all brought their instruments. So that was the idea of the workshop, that they would bring their instruments. So they're all very serious students of science and very good students of science, and they're very dedicated students. So, but because they're dedicated students of science, they're also dedicated musicians, which we realized. So we tried to make something together. So this song, it's called Tumi Akhoni Esho, Come Now. So I'll tell you how this song began. So the song began, So the song began when I wrote this one line that there's so much sickness all around. Don't come now, don't come now, because come when days are better, when we are healthier, when things are better, when things look better. There's so much darkness now that don't come now, come when there is light. That's what I had written. And then, you know, through these last 3-4 years, we've been going through so much. Even before the pandemic, I mean, there's been so much outrage all over the country. And and it just seemed like such a difficult time that we were living in and passing through. And it's then that I picked up the song again, and I thought, if you must come, then this is the time to come. Because if there is sickness in my home, there is sickness in yours too. And if there is darkness in my home, there is your darkness too. So let's come together. This is the time. If the ship were to sink, let's hold hands and let the ship sink. You know, at least we must know that we were holding hands. So this is what I felt, and that's why I completed the song. So we will start, and then our friends, and they will all join. And I'll tell their names separately later. This is the song with which we end the first segment. Arnab, are we ready to go? Are you ready?
Just get step back slightly with your chin.
No, you step back a little bit.
Step back slightly because the mic is getting
ঠিক আছে? Everybody? This is And this is Pushan. We do something else again together, and the girls will be there as well. So this is the end of the first segment. Now I'm going to just do a little prelude to Pushan Ayyub's, Professor Pushan Ayyub's section. I'll just set it in motion. So I set it in motion by actually singing a song and telling you a story. So this is the song which is called Chitrokar. It means, it's a song about the painter. So Chitrokar, so this is a song that I wrote many years ago. And it's about the painter, a painter from Bangladesh, who's a friend of mine, who lives in Calcutta. And he lives in a sort of a rooftop, one room, you know. He lives there. And he paints his canvases, and he paints rivers on his canvases. He's from Bangladesh. So his name could be anything. His name could be Habib, his name could be Shomir, his name could be Anwar. And he's come to Calcutta. He's come to the other side, and he's painting, because he's remembering home, so he's painting fishes of home in his rivers. And then it is the dawn of 21 February, on the 21st of February, the day of the Language Martyrs' Day. That morning, this painter, this Chitrokar, he's painting, the sun begins to rise from the waters of his rivers, and he remembers the anthem of the 21st of February. He remembers that day because it's a very special day, which is a very special day for the birth of Bangladesh. So he remembers that day. And I sing about the Chitrokar. So it goes like this, the song. Chitrokar, তুমি ছিলে কোথায় বসে ছবি আঁকো? চিত্রকর, তুমি ছিলে কোথায় বসে ছবি আঁকো? ওপরে ওড়েছিল দুরানা স্থির রেখে শূন্যে ভাগ খায়. So the kite is flying in the sky, and its wings are still, and it hovers in the sky, and with its eyes fixed it watches the earth below. চিত্রকর, তুমি ছিলে কোথায় বসে ছবি আঁকো, and you become the bird. তুমিও ছিল দুরানা স্থির রেখে শূন্যে পাক খাও. তুমিও ছিল দুরানা স্থির রেখে শূন্যে পাক খাও. কলকাতার গলি, কলকাতার পথ, দূরের রেল লাইন, তোমার ক্যানভাসে, তোমার নদী হয়ে চিত্রকর, চিত্রকর, তুমি তোমার নদী জলে মাছ আঁকো. চিত্রকর, তুমি হাবিব অথবা সমীর, আনওয়ার, কলকাতার টানে উজান ঠেলে এসে তোমার ক্যানভাসে তোমার নদী আঁকো. চিত্রকর, তুমি তোমার নদী একুশে ভোরবেলা তোমার ক্যানভাসে, তোমার নদী জলে সূর্য করে খেলা। তোমার বুকে বাজে ফেলে আসা সে সুর, তোমার বুকে বাজে ফেলে আসা সে সুর, বলো না কত দূর বান ভাসানো বাড়ি। তোমার ভাইয়ের রক্তে রাঙানো একুশে ফেব্রুয়ারি। আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তে রাঙানো একুশে ফেব্রুয়ারি। বান ভাসানো বাড়ি, আমি কি ভুলিতে পারি? পুষণ আয়্যুব।
আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তে রাঙানো 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি আমি কি ভুলিতে পারি? Tinged with the blood of my brothers, 21st February, can I ever forget that day? So Moushumi brought us using a very evocative and poignant song poem. She transported us in space and time from a lonely attic of an artist to the middle of the turmoil in 1952. This date, 21st February 1952, was arguably the most important date in the history of Bangladesh's formation. This is a prehistory of Bangladesh because Bangladesh was still a long time in forming. And let me give you a short tour of how we go from 52, and I'll take you over to the next song that Moushumi is going to sing after the break, and it will be a short tour, and it will be intermingled with not just the history that you see on the left, which you can see on Wikipedia or anywhere, but also on the few things, on the few interweaving links that I'm going to give on the right. So this is history, that is my story. So let me start with the fact that the fission of Bangladesh, the fission of Pakistan, was inbuilt into the history of Pakistan, because in 1948 itself, Jinnah had come and declared in Dhaka that the official language of Pakistan would only be Urdu. And even then, this was declared even when it was known that the majority of Pakistan was actually Bengali speaking, 20% more Bengali speaking people than Urdu speaking. And immediately protests started. There were problems in Dhaka, and the problems spread elsewhere. So what the government did is what the governments usually do. They asked for a committee to look into the matter, and the committee took its own time from 48 to 52. It took 4 years to decide on what was a foregone conclusion, that Urdu would be the official language. And this was declared in January of 1952. Now, the students were not guided by any committee. They decided within a few weeks that they had to protest against this. There were protests, there were general strikes, there were the seeds of the revolution were actually now starting. So on the first day of the general strike on February 21, there were 5 people killed in Dhaka University in police firing. This was only the beginning, and these were the martyrs. These were the martyrs that actually started the Bhasha Andolan. So now we go from Bhasha Andolan to Bhasha Divas, the language day. So there is a rather interesting connection with this to India, and let me go into that. So Bhasha Divas was 21st February. Now this could not be commemorated the next year because the students tried to bring up a Shahid Minar in Dhaka, but that was immediately smashed by the police and it didn't start. The place where it was actually commemorated successfully was in Bengal, in West Bengal, in Shantiniketan, in the compounds of Vishwabharati University. And this happened because under the leadership of somebody called Annada Shankar Rai, whom actually Moushumi referred to on the first day in the colloquium. He was a retired ICS officer, a very famous writer and poet, and he, with the help of just 4 students, started this effort of trying to get the 2 Bengals together and have a Sahitya Mela. They could not call it the commemoration of the movement of the language day, because in that case nobody from East Pakistan would be able to come, because that would immediately be considered as sedition. So they just called it Sahitya Mela, and this was held in 1953, just 1 year after the killing that started in Dhaka. So now only 4 of the people from Pakistan, from East Pakistan, could come, and one of them, you cannot see the names very clearly, but the names are on the right hand side. One of them was called Shamsur Rahman. Please remember this because we will come back to this name later on. So there were several interesting things about this meeting. There was not too much money in Shantiniketan at that time, even though the main sponsor was Rabindranath Tagore, Rabindranath's son, and he was the vice chancellor of the university at that time. He promised some money, but the bulk of the money was from donations, and these 4 volunteers went around from house to house, collecting anything between 2 rupees and 5 rupees from all the inhabitants of Shantiniketan. And my connection to this is that the youngest of these 4 volunteers was also my mother, and I heard it from her, and these documents also are from her collection. Her name is right at the end, the last one, because she's the youngest and the junior most of these people. So then they got to know these people. The East and West did get together, and from West Bengal, actually almost all the famous people, the famous writers, poets, everybody joined in this meeting. So this was quite a success. And then we go back to what was happening in Bangladesh at that time. I will not go into the details of the history because this is actually well known and you can find out elsewhere. But in 1954, the government did recognize the Bangla as the second language of Pakistan. But that didn't help very much because it was done in such a way that the power remained with the Urdu-speaking elite of Pakistan. So after that, in 1970, there was a national election in Pakistan. In the eastern side, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman won the election with a massive majority, and he got so many seats that the number of seats he got was a majority in both parts of Pakistan combined. But he was not allowed to form the government. Bhutto decided that he will offer him co-prime ministership, which of course he did not agree to. And it was very clear that now there will be a showdown. And on 7th of March in Dhaka, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman called a historical meeting, attended by something between almost close to 10 million people attended that meeting. And in that meeting, it was called to open rebellion. And it was also a sign of his arrest warrant, because they knew that he would be then arrested. But before he got arrested, he told people to come out of their houses, come out with whatever they have, and encounter the Pakistani soldiers. So between 7th March and 21st March, Pakistan International Airlines stopped all their regular flights, and they took guest government workers to Pakistan. These are all army people. So the entire army was shifted to eastern part of Pakistan, and the crackdown in Dhaka started on the 25th of March of that year. And within a few days, on the first night itself, many of the intelligentsia of Dhaka, the writers, the poets, the professors, irrespective of religion, both Hindus and Muslims, were slaughtered, and 25,000 people died in the first 2 or 3 days. During that time, there was another interesting thing that happened. How do we know about this? How do we know about what happened and how this propagated? So that is the last part of this slide. So we come to this. Yeah. So we come to Shamsur Rahman, who was now grown up. Earlier, when he came to Shantiniketan, he was just a 21-year-old young poet. Now he was a well-known poet, and he somehow was not. He escaped the Operation Searchlight carried out by the butchers of West Pakistan, and he kept on writing poetry at a feverish pace, almost 2 or 3 a day. And then what happened is that by the end of April, some freedom fighters. There was already a freedom movement that had started in East Pakistan. Some of them came and met him. They heard his poetry and they wanted to carry it to the Mukti Jodha camps, the liberation fighter camps, to read out to the fighters and to enthuse them and to make them sort of interested in what was going on outside their camps. So Shamsur Rahman, of course, agreed. He had written 37 poems by then, and he gave them to these people written in his own hand. And the understanding was that after that they would go over to West Bengal, because they had free access across the border. They could go over to West Bengal, and they would give it to somebody that he knew, and he wanted these things to be also publicized in Bengal, in Calcutta. So the people he chose were again my father and mother. My father was a literary critic, and they also knew Shamsur Rahman personally, of course. So these poems reached our house in Calcutta in May of 1971, and immediately my father arranged for them to be published in some of the leading Bengali journals. They were published in 2 or 3 of them, and they were published as a book next year also. They were not, of course, published in Shamsur Rahman's own name, and that would have been his death warrant, because then he would immediately have been found out and killed. So this book was called Bondi Shibir Theke. Bondi Shibir Theke means from the camp of the prisoners of wars. And I just want to read out one stanza of this title poem of this book, which is also called Bondi Shibir Theke. This is a picture of Shamsur Rahman on the left. These are actually the original manuscripts which were lying in our house for close to 50 years, because before we handed them over to the Bangla Academy last couple of months ago. So this is his own writing here, and the poem that I'm just going to give you a sample of is Shadinota Namok Shabdoti Bharat Golay Diptu Ucharon Kore Barbar Tripti Pete Chai. The word freedom, how dearly I would love to say it out again and again in a voice loud and deep. শহরের আনাচে কানাচে প্রতিটি রাস্তায় অলিতে গলিতে রঙিন সাইনবোর্ড প্রত্যেক বাড়িতে স্বাধীনতা নামক শব্দটি আমি লিখে দিতে চাই বিশাল অক্ষরে। In every nook and cranny, lane and bylane, on every gaudy signboard on the walls of every house, would I love to write freedom in letters large and clear. স্বাধীনতা শব্দ যে এত প্রিয় সে আমার কখনো জানিনি আগে। উঁচিয়ে বন্দুক স্বাধীনতা বাংলাদেশ এই মতো শব্দ থেকে ওরা আমাকে বিচ্ছিন্ন করে রেখেছে সর্বদা। The word freedom, never had I realized that I love it so deeply. Pointing their rifles, they try to keep me apart from words such as independence and Bangladesh. So this is just a kind of sample of what he was writing at that time. This is the cover of the book that came out then. And so now we come to the next part of this. So by May 1971, all the cities of Bangladesh, all the major cities, smaller cities were taken by the Pakistani army. And the counter movement also had started. The Mukti Fauj had also already started countering these Pakistani soldiers, not with too much success in the beginning. And also some sort of covert operation from the Indian side had started in Pakistan, though India joined the war much later in December 1971. So what happened now is that many people from Bangladesh, many of my parents' friends, poets, ordinary people, they started coming to our house. Some of them stayed in our house, and this included also the freedom fighters. So of course that was very interesting. I mean, I was 14 years old that time, and it was very, very exciting for all of us, for me, for my friends, to really see what was happening. So we met many people who can be classified as heroes. I'll just talk about two of them here. One of them was the so-called Major Dalim. So Major Dalim was Captain Shariful Haq in the Pakistani army. He was stationed in Balochistan, in the western part of Pakistan. And he was a very staunch Bengali and a staunch nationalist. So when he saw what was happening, he and four of his friends took their life in their own hands, and they crossed over. They traveled across Pakistan, crossed over the Rajasthan border, and they came and they met the Indian army. They were actually arrested by the Indian army initially, but then they were sent to Bangladesh as Mukti Yoddhas. And then Major Dalim fought in the war, but he also, because he knew some of the people that were staying in our house, my nieces, and some of their friends, that he came frequently to our house. And then actually we came to know him, and his story was like a real novel, sort of romantic novel. He was tall, dark, and handsome, as you can see here partly. You can see that he's handsome. And all our friends were sort of in awe of him, and used to tell stories of what was happening in Pakistan and about the war. And then again, of course, he was irresistible to women, and he had a girlfriend in Calcutta who was from the Pakistani High Commission, from the Bangladesh High Commission, the High Commissioner's daughter. And he did not want Dalim to marry her, because nobody wants a freedom fighter as a son-in-law, because their sort of life expectancy is not too long. And they were actually right, because in about a month or so we saw Dalim come back after a raid on some Pakistani camps, and his left arm was sort of hanging with only some skin. It was actually completely blown apart by a shell. So then his hand was in a sling. At that time, they decided that they would marry, because they did not know how long he would actually survive. So, his friends and my parents, they got his wife out of their house, and they married in a friend's house, and we were there, and it was very, very exciting. But anyway, but he with his hands in his sling, we thought it was the end of the war from him. It was nothing like that. Within a month, he was back in the front, and he was fighting back again. And then, of course, I will not go into the entire story, because the story becomes more interesting after the independence, because then he joined the Bangladesh army as a captain, and major, he was already captain. And then there was a sort of falling apart between the army and Sheikh Mujib, because Sheikh Mujib's sort of personal bodyguard, he had a personal militia who did not get along with the army, and there were other problems. And then within 4 or 5 years, by 1975, he was actually assassinated. In 1971, Mujib was Dalim's god. He was his hero, but Dalim was one of the 4 people who were actually involved in the killing of Mujib in 1975. Then, of course, he escaped, and we don't know. We have never met him directly after that. But his story is very, very interesting as far as this entire episode is concerned. So it's difficult to call him a hero, but he was at least a hero for the creation of Bangladesh as far as that is concerned. The other person I'll just talk about here very briefly is somebody again we met actually personally, and this person was not really tall, dark, and handsome. He was dark, but he was short and he was plump, and We met him because he was one of the people who went to receive the Bangladesh Freedom Honor with us. He was a captain in the Indian Army, MNR Sawant, and by April of 1971, he was already sent to Bangladesh to train their naval commandos. So they didn't have any naval commandos to start with, but Bangladesh is a river-fed region, and there are many rivers there. There are many people who can swim very well. So he just got people who can swim well. He got about 20-25 of them, and he trained them over 3 months to become naval commandos. So they were trained to stay underwater for hours on end. They were trained to swim for long periods, for up to 10 kilometers at a stretch. And then before the war had actually started, much before that December, these naval commandos trained by Captain Sawant and few of his other Indian Navy colleagues had actually sunk all the Pakistani ships in Kumilla and Chittagong harbor overnight by planting landmines, by planting mines under them. So this was a kind of one-night operation where the Pakistan Navy in East Pakistan was decimated. And this was mainly done by Captain Sawant. He received the MBC, the Mahavir Chakra for that, and he was with us in Bangladesh, and we heard his story from him. In fact, we were on a trip down the Meghna River in Bangladesh on an official sort of Bangladesh Navy boat, and there was a large big picture of the Meghna on the boat, and he told me to take a picture of him and his wife in front of this boat which had Meghna's picture. And he said that when he left Bangladesh, when he left India for Bangladesh, for the rest of the war, his wife had no idea of where he was. But he had a child at that time. When he came back after the war was over, the child was a daughter, and she was called Meghna. So he wanted her to see the real river where actually this happened, where he was spending his time in the war. So this is the other hero that I remember, but there are many other people that we got to know at that time, and they all had very interesting stories. So let me also say that I have been to Bangladesh 4 times. The last 2 times were as state guests. The first time was as a kind of completely uninvited, illegal person, because we went during the middle of the war in 1971, in June or July, with my mother and some of her friends. And it was probably an Indian Army speedboat that we crossed the river about 150 kilometers north of Calcutta, near a place called Lalgola. And it was a very wide stretch of the river there. We went into a place which was already called Muktanchal. Muktanchal means it's already a liberated area. So it has been liberated by the Bangladeshi commando, by the Bangladeshi guerrilla from the Pakistanis. It was liberated, but it was completely desolate. There was nobody in the villages that we saw, and the shops were empty. There was nothing in the shop. One cannot say that they were looted, because the things from there were taken away by the refugees when they were coming to India. So the thing that actually struck me, and which I can still remember very vividly, is that when we were coming back to our boats on the river bank, the soft mud or sand near the river bank, in one area there were many sticks which were actually planted on the bank. And I thought that these were some plants which were dying or something like that. I tried to pull one of the sticks, and then the people who were with us, some Bangladeshi guerrillas, they said, "Bhai, don't pull that, because these are all unmarked graves. We could not bury these people properly. They are all people from this area. We could not bury them properly, so we have just put sticks to mark their graves." There were at least 100 to 200 sticks in that single area. So again, we come back I'll come back to sort of the close what I want to say. And then this is the place where we actually crossed over. The second time we went there as state guests, and we received some awards for my parents, on behalf of my parents. On top you can see the Prime Minister with us, and this again is actually not so important. So because when I remember Bangladesh of 1971, or Bangladesh at all, this is not the picture that comes to my mind. I remember the road that we took to along the border and along the refugee camp camps because my mother was working in the refugee camps, and they made a small orphanage. This orphanage is still there. Of course, now there are only Indian children, and this orphanage was at that time operated by only Bangladeshi children who were very badly sort of malnutrition and who were very ill. And while going there, every time we passed by this road, these pictures you would have seen today in today's movie and yesterday's movie. So I will not talk about this very much. These are the refugees coming in. We saw them all the time, all the while that were there. And then we saw these refugee camps which were there, and about which also we have seen these films that were made by Moushumi and the very sort of poignant films that were there. But this was that road. This was really just a road that we're talking about. And after this, I would actually, we'll have a break now, but after this break, Moushumi will come back and she will talk about, or she will sing the song that has immortalized Jessar Road forever in our minds and in our hearts. So thank you very much for being patient with me, and I think we're going to break for tea now.